Ex-wife cheated on me during our engagement, left me for her ex, and blamed me when he dumped her. Hey, I'm a 33-year-old guy who's always been pretty hesitant about committing to a serious relationship. My past experiences left me pretty freaked out about the whole thing. A few years back, I was in this super toxic relationship with a girl who was incredibly manipulative and controlling. I didn't catch the red flags early on because, love can make you blind. We were together for about 3 years, and during that time, I lost a big chunk of who I was. She isolated me from my friends, made me feel like I was always in the wrong, and even cheated on me multiple times. When I finally found the strength to leave her, I promised myself I wouldn't let anyone have that kind of control over me again. After that messy breakup, I became really cautious. I dated here and there but kept things casual. I was terrified of getting hurt again, so I wasn't looking for anything more than just fun. But deep down, I knew I wanted something real. The problem was, I didn't trust myself to pick the right person. I thought I'd always end up with someone who would hurt me again. Then, I met Arya. At first, I had my guard up, but she seemed different. Arya, who was 31, had her own set of issues. She came from a rough background, her parents weren't very supportive, and she had a history of unstable relationships. She'd been in and out of therapy for years, dealing with anxiety, depression, and trust issues. The fact that she was so open about her mental health struggles made me feel like she was genuine because she wasn't trying to hide her problems. I felt like I could be real with her too, which was something I hadn't felt in a long time. Arya mentioned that her previous relationships had ended badly, mostly because of her jealousy and trust issues. She even admitted that she'd been cheated on a couple of times, which only made her more insecure. Given my past, I could totally relate to the trust issues, so I thought maybe we could help each other heal. But looking back, I think we were both too damaged to really be good for each other. Arya and I met through a mutual friend, Kayla, at a party. I wasn't planning to go, but Kayla convinced me to come out and have some fun. She'd been trying to set me up with someone for a while, so I figured this was just another one of her attempts. But when I met Arya, there was an instant connection. We clicked in a way I hadn't experienced in a long time. We had similar interests, movies, music, even the same taste in books. It felt like meeting someone who really got me. We started dating pretty quickly after that. From the beginning, we were both clear about our goals. Neither of us was interested in a fling. We were dating with the intention of finding someone to settle down with. This was a big deal for me because I hadn't felt ready to settle down with anyone in years. But with Arya, I felt like maybe I'd found the person I could do that with. We talked about marriage early on, and it didn't scare me the way it used to. She seemed like someone I could build a future with. But things started getting complicated sooner than I expected. Arya had major jealousy issues, which led to frequent arguments. At first, I tried to be understanding because of her past. I knew she'd been cheated on before, so I figured her jealousy was just a way of protecting herself. But it got out of hand. She would get upset if I so much as talked to another woman, even if it was just a friendly conversation. She'd accuse me of flirting or wanting to cheat on her, and it didn't help that she would bring up my ex and compare herself to her. It was exhausting. My family wasn't keen on Arya either. They thought she was too erratic and unstable. My mom even told me she thought Arya was bad news and that I should reconsider the relationship. But I didn't listen. I was convinced that my family just didn't understand her, that they were being too judgmental. Arya had a way of making me feel like we were the only ones who understood each other, and that everyone else was just trying to tear us apart. We broke up temporarily after one particularly nasty argument where she accused me of cheating with a coworker. The accusation was completely false, and it hurt that she didn't trust me. I was ready to end things for good, but Arya came back apologizing and promising to work on her issues. She said she realized she was pushing me away and that she didn't want to lose me. Against my better judgment, I decided to give her another chance. After we got back together, things seemed to improve for a while. Arya was making an effort to control her jealousy, and we were actually enjoying our time together without constant arguments. About a year later, after we had celebrated our 3-year anniversary, I decided to propose. I really thought she had changed, and I believed we could make it work. I proposed during a weekend getaway to the mountains, where we had one of our first dates. It felt like the perfect place to take that next step. Arya was over the moon when I proposed. She seemed genuinely happy, and for a while everything felt right. We started planning the wedding, and I really thought we were on our way to building a life together. But I should have known things were never going to be that simple. Planning the wedding was where things started to fall apart again. Arya had this vision of a big, extravagant wedding, which I wasn't really on board with. I wanted something simpler, but she insisted that this was her dream wedding and that we should go all out. More guests, a fancier venue, designer dresses, you name it. She wanted it. I tried to compromise, but it felt like nothing I suggested was good enough. We argued almost daily about the wedding. Arya turned into a bit of a bridezilla, to be honest. She was stressed out all the time and would snap at me over the smallest things. If something didn't go exactly as she wanted, she would lose it. I started to hate anything related to the wedding because I knew it would just lead to another fight. And it wasn't just about the money either. She was obsessed with making everything perfect. And I felt like I was just along for the ride, like my opinion didn't matter. I tried to tell her how I was feeling, but she would either dismiss my concerns or turn it into a bigger deal. So, things got super tense between Arya and my family. Everyone was skeptical about Arya, and wedding planning only made things worse. My parents were especially not thrilled about the cost of the wedding, and they weren't convinced Arya was right for me. They started making passive-aggressive comments and even threatened not to come if things didn't calm down. It put me in a really tough spot. I wanted my family there, but I didn't want to upset Arya by siding with them. Arya wasn't too happy with my parents either. She felt like they were trying to sabotage our wedding and relationship, accusing them of disrespecting her. I was stuck in the middle, trying to keep everyone happy, but failing miserably. As the wedding day got closer, I felt things spiraling out of control. The financial strain was killing me too. Arya wanted an extravagant wedding, and even though we had some savings, it wasn't nearly enough. We were going to have to go into debt. When I tried talking about cutting costs, she'd get really upset, thinking I was ruining her dream. I didn't want to disappoint her, so I just kept quiet and hoped it would all work out somehow. But the stress had me tossing and turning at night, worrying about how we'd pay for everything. I felt isolated. My family would just say, "I told you so," and I didn't want to burden my friends. So I bottled it all up, trying to put on a brave face for Arya and everyone else. Inside, I was a mess and started questioning if I was making a huge mistake. But I didn't know how to back out without causing more drama. The wedding day finally arrived, but it was far from smooth. Arya seemed distracted and nervous from the get-go. I thought it was just pre-wedding jitters because I was also anxious. During the ceremony, she kept looking at her phone, which weirded me out, but I didn't want to make a scene. Right before we walked down the aisle, we had a brief argument. I caught her texting someone, and when I asked about it, she got defensive, snapping that it was none of my business. That threw me off, but I let it go, not wanting to ruin the day. The honeymoon was supposed to be relaxing, but it was anything but. We went on a short trip to a tropical island, but Arya kept to herself most of the time, claiming she needed space or wasn't feeling well. When we were together, we argued a lot. She was moody and distant, and I couldn't figure out why. The trip was cut short after a massive fight where Arya accused me of being too controlling and said she felt trapped. I was stunned. This was supposed to be the happiest time of our lives, but it was a nightmare. Nothing I said seemed to help. It felt like she was already checked out of the marriage. A few weeks after we got back, Arya dropped a bombshell. She confessed that she still had feelings for Evan, her high school sweetheart. She'd been talking to him during our engagement and even on our wedding day. She admitted she had thought about calling off the wedding but couldn't muster the courage. Hearing this was gut-wrenching. All that stress and arguments could have been avoided if she had just been honest. She apologized, but it felt insincere, like she was just trying to clear her conscience. I was devastated. I married someone who didn't even want to be with me. She said she was confused and didn't want to hurt me, but all I felt was betrayal. I asked why she didn't end it before the wedding, and she said she thought marrying me would help her forget about Evan. But it didn't, and now we were both stuck. Despite everything, I still loved Arya and wasn't ready to give up. I tried convincing her that we could work through it, suggesting boundaries and even couples counseling, but she refused. She didn't think counseling would help and didn't want to stop talking to Evan, claiming he was the only one who understood her. That was the final nail in the coffin. I realized I couldn't force her to be in the marriage. She was still clinging to her past with Evan, and I was just in the way. It broke my heart, but I knew I had to let her go. As if things couldn't get worse, I dug deeper and found out Arya had been lying for months. She hadn't just been talking to Evan since the wedding, she'd been in contact with him since our engagement. She lied about where she was, who she was with, and even met up with Evan when she said she was with friends. It was all too much to bear. I've been going through a pretty rough patch for a while now, and I just need to get this off my chest. There were moments when I thought Arya was just being distant or stressed, but it turns out she was hiding her relationship with him. Finding all of this out shattered whatever trust I had left in her. I felt like such an idiot for missing all the signs. I was so focused on making the wedding perfect and trying to make her happy that I completely overlooked all the red flags. Looking back, it was pretty obvious something was off, but I was too blinded by love to see it. So when I confronted Arya about her lies, things got really ugly. We had this massive argument that actually escalated into a physical altercation. I'm not proud of how I acted. I didn't hit her or anything, but I did grab her arms and shake her, demanding to know why she did this to me. She screamed back, calling me controlling and blaming me for our marriage falling apart. After that fight, Arya packed her bags, left a note saying she needed space, and moved out. I was left alone in our apartment, and I swear, it was one of the darkest moments of my life. A few days later, I got divorce papers in the mail, and just like that, our marriage was over before it even really began. After Arya moved out, we didn't talk directly. Everything was handled through our lawyers, and while the legal stuff was a clean break, emotionally, I was a wreck. I kept thinking about what went wrong and how everything fell apart so quickly. I was angry, hurt, and confused all at the same time. I wanted to reach out to her, but I knew it wouldn't make a difference. She had made her choice. Even though I wasn't talking to Arya, I still heard about her through Kayla, our mutual friend. Kayla was stuck in the middle and didn't want to take sides, but it was hard for her not to get involved. Not long after the divorce, Kayla told me Arya had started dating Evan again. I wasn't surprised, but it still stung. According to Kayla, Arya and Evan moved in together pretty quickly and were flaunting their relationship all over social media. It felt like she was rubbing it in my face. The divorce didn't just leave me heartbroken, it also hit me hard financially. Arya and I had combined our finances, even though we didn't have a joint account. When we split, I was left with most of the debt from the wedding and the cost of our honeymoon. Arya didn't offer to help with any of it, and I was too proud to ask. So I took it all on myself, downgrading my apartment, selling some stuff, and cutting back on anything that wasn't absolutely necessary. Now here's why I'm writing this. About a month ago, I found out Arya and Evan got engaged. Kayla told me Evan had proposed using the same ring I gave to Arya. That felt like a whole new level of disrespect. They were planning a small ceremony, inviting some of our mutual friends, which caused more drama. Kayla, in particular, was really confused. She didn't agree with what Arya had done, but also didn't want to lose her friendship with her. Kayla ended up declining the wedding invitation, which I was grateful for. It showed she had my back, but it also made things complicated because she was still in contact with Arya. Then, out of nowhere, Arya reached out to me. She'd created a new Instagram account to get around being blocked and sent me a message, blaming me for her wedding with Evan being called off. Apparently, things didn't go as planned and they broke up. She claimed it was because of the bad karma I wished on her and accused me of ruining her life. At first, I considered ignoring her message, but the more I thought about it, the angrier I got. She was trying to blame me for her own decisions. So, I replied, telling her it was karma for how she treated me. I reminded her she had lied, cheated, and walked away from our marriage without a second thought. I wasn't kind in my response, but I didn't care. I was done playing nice. After sending the message, I blocked her again and didn't think twice about it. Apparently, my message didn't sit well with Arya. Kayla told me Arya had a severe panic attack after reading what I said and ended up in the hospital. Her parents blamed me, saying I triggered her breakdown. Kayla was also surprised by my harsh response. She thought I was better than that and that I should have been the bigger person. This led to tension between Kayla and me. She started to distance herself, and it hurt because she had been one of my closest friends. We had a big argument about everything, and it ended with us saying things we didn't mean. We haven't really spoken much since, and now things at work are pretty tense. Recently, Kayla suggested I talk to Arya, maybe even apologize to help us both move on. She said Arya is still struggling with her mental health and that her parents are really worried about her. I'm caught between wanting to move on and holding on to my pride. So here I am, asking for some outside perspective. Am I the asshole for telling my ex-wife that being left was karma for how she treated me? Thanks for listening.